At over 94,000 square kilometers, Castile and León is the largest region in Spain in terms of area. The area of Castile and León is therefore around a fifth of the area of Spain. The region lies on a high plateau and borders the Sistema Iberico mountain range in the east, Cordillera Central in the south, Cordillera Cantabrica in the north, and the border river Duero, which separates Castile-León from Portugal. It is very difficult to describe this varied and diverse region. However, if there is a description, then the terms monumental and enormous would be part of this definition. Everything geographical and cultural seems excessively large and gigantic. The region was created in 1983 through the unification of the regions of Castilla la Vieja and León, two of the most important regions of medieval Spain and of great historical significance. You can still see this today in the countless cathedrals, monasteries, castles, and fortified towns. The region also has natural parks and miles of almost untouched nature to offer, with impressive oak and cork oak forests. The continental climate is typical of this region of Spain, with a stark contrast between long, harsh winters and temperate summers. Thanks to its vast expanse, Castile and León also boasts a rich fauna in its diverse habitats. Inaccessible and inhospitable areas are home to rare species such as wolves and brown bears, which were threatened with extinction. The golden age of Gothic architecture corresponds to the heyday of the empire, when the term Castile and León was synonymous with Spain and vice versa. The cathedrals of León and Burgos are masterpieces of this architectural style. All in all, Castile and León is a gigantic museum, a masterful mosaic of natural beauty and centuries of glorious history. If you like this video, please support the Travel Owl channel with a like, comment, or a subscription. Thank you. The Castillo de Frias, also known as Castillo de los Velasco, is considered to be the best preserved building of medieval defensive architecture in the province of Burgos. Barely 500 meters north of the castle hill is the town's second landmark, the old, 143-meter-long bridge over the river Ebro with a striking defensive tower in the middle, which controlled the crossing of the river from the 14th century onwards. But the number of sites does not end there. On the southeastern slope of the cliff, the houses cling to the mountain as if by magic. Some of the casas colgadas, built of wood and tuff, have wine cellars, as the light white wine Chacolí, which is mainly known from the Basque country, was grown in the area until the 20th century. It is great fun to walk through the narrow streets of the old town past the town hall up to the church of San Vicente Martir, which was built on the eastern tip of the cliff. As the church tower collapsed at the beginning of the 20th century, a new one had to be built. The original Romanesque portal of the church can now be seen in a museum in New York. The foundation of this 2,000-year-old, emblematic provincial capital, approximately 140,000 inhabitants, with a rich history and impressive buildings, dates back to a camp of the 7th Roman Legion, which was located between the Torio and Bernska rivers. In the Middle Ages, León became the capital of the kingdom of the same name. Today it offers an ideal opportunity to discover and experience the historical sites. The Plaza Mayor forms the center of this city, which combines modernity with ancient tradition, where the most diverse activities of its inhabitants have taken place since time immemorial. This main square is dominated by the Consistorio Viejo, the old town hall, a palace with a long facade, which for centuries was considered the balcony of the city. A short walk leads to the city's real treasure. The cathedral, known as the Pulcra Leonina, represents one of the most beautiful works of Spanish Gothic art. Construction of the current building began around 1255 on the site of a Romanesque predecessor, on the very spot where Roman baths once stood. However, the highlight of the cathedral is the 1,800 square meters of artistic stained glass windows, which Miguel de Unamuno described as a miracle of light and stone. The Hostel de San Marcos on the riverbank on the other side of the city was built between the 16th and 17th centuries according to the Plateresque formal principles of the Spanish Renaissance as a convent and pilgrims' hostel. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Pedraza became very wealthy thanks to the wool industry. Almost 5,000 people lived here at the time. As more and more people moved to Segovia and Madrid in the 20th century, more and more buildings in Pedraza fell into disrepair. This process continued until the 1960s, although Pedraza has been a national cultural asset since 1951. Time seems to have stood still in Pedraza. You notice this as soon as you enter the village. Pedraza is situated on a hill and is completely surrounded by a wall. The only entrance is a single preserved gate, Puerta de la Villa. It is large enough for people and small carts to pass through. For trucks, however, the journey ends at this point. Actually, the best thing we can recommend in Pedraza is to stroll through the quaint streets and squares. It is a blessing to slow down here and discover the many details everywhere. The old doors and windows, the wrought iron balconies and stone facades with magnificent coats of arms. The small stores with antiques, ceramics and other handicrafts make the streets even more inviting. The Plaza Mayor is undoubtedly an impressive place in Pedraza. Covered passages lead around the entire square, which also provide a little shade in summer. It feels a bit like the setting for a medieval movie. Pedraza was a flourishing trading town until the 18th century. The castle with its double wall, towers and moat in the village are evidence of this. Not far from the Camino de Santiago lies the bizarre cultural landscape of Las Médulas. In the middle of a green mountain range near Ponferrada stands a red-brown jagged massif. This is where the Romans dug for gold over 2,000 years ago. The resourceful Roman engineers at this location in Castile invented new methods to get at the gold. Using a complicated system of channels, they excavated parts of the hills by flooding passages and tunnels with water and increasing the pressure to the extreme limit. Las Médulas has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1997. Today, the remains of the Roman mining technology known as Ruina Montium can still be seen in Las Médulas. Some of the canal system, which is over 100 kilometers long, is also still preserved. This is because the water was melted snow from the higher mountains in this region of Castile. It is particularly interesting to visit the tunnels and passages, which visitors can easily walk through. However, as with any mountain tour, care is advised. If you are traveling in the Spanish province of Valladolid, you should not miss a visit to the Castillo de la Mota in Medina del Campo. This medieval castle and fortress has been restored at great expense over many years and is considered a Spanish national treasure. The construction of the complex, its partial destruction, its expansion and its reconstruction in different eras are a reflection of Spain's history. The origins of the castle date back to the 11th century, when the settlement of Medina del Campo was founded on the hill of La Mota. The first forerunners of the castle also emerged with the settlement and enclosure of the town. The first core castle dates back to the 13th century and parts of the old foundations can be seen today following excavations. From the 17th century onwards, the castle fell into disrepair until the beginning of the 20th century, when work began to rebuild the exterior. In 1904, Castillo de la Mota was declared a national cultural asset, after which further restoration work was carried out. Castillo de la Mota was built using the light reddish brick typical of the area. The large curtain wall with embrasures around the castle, which is surrounded by a moat, is impressive. 4 towers surround the inner courtyard, in which living quarters were located. The most visible part of the castle is the 5-story, square main tower, which at 44 meters high is the highest castle tower in Castile. Green forests, limestone cliffs, caves and gorges up to 200 meters deep. These are the attractions of Hoces del Alto Ebro and Rudrón Natural Park. In addition, the unique vegetation and birdlife make this area a unique destination for hikes and tours. The considerable differences in altitude between the river valleys and the plateaus create a different microclimate. Below, in the gorges, plants thrive that are otherwise only found in the Mediterranean region. While at higher altitudes, the flora is characterized by the influences of the Atlantic climate. Eagles, vultures, eagle owls and falcons nest in the rocks. The waters of the Ebro and Rudrón rivers are home to numerous amphibians and small reptiles. If you're lucky, you might spot an otter or a badger. There are numerous villages worth visiting within the nature park. One of them is Pesquera de Ebro. The listed village is picturesquely situated on a bend of the river Ebro. On the banks are stately manor houses built from the natural stone of the surrounding area. A bridge over the Ebro was first mentioned in a document in 941, while the current bridge has retained its medieval character. A waterfall and rock pinnacles characterize the beautiful village of Orbanea del Castillo on a bend of the river Ebro. The mountain village is located on the edge of the Hoces del Alto Ebro and Rudrón Natural Park and is one of the most scenic villages in the north of the province of Burgos. The small town of Astorga, which is well worth a visit, lies in a wide plain on the edge of the León Mountains at an altitude of over 850 meters. The town is an important stop on the Way of St. James, which runs through the middle of the Old Town. Astorga is one of the oldest towns in the region, which was known as Asturica Augusta during the Roman rule of the Iberian Peninsula. At that time, Astorga was the northernmost end point of the Roman road Via de la Plata, which led from Mérida in the south to Astorga and whose entire 470 kilometers route was paved. The path through the Puerta Romana leads directly to two of Astorga's most important sites, the Palacio Episcopal and the Cathedral of Santa Maria. The playful Episcopal Palace is the work of Catalan architect Antoni Gaudí. Construction began under his direction in 1889, but he abandoned it in 1893 due to disagreements with the city council. The neo-Gothic-style palace now houses a pilgrimage museum. Construction of Astorga Cathedral began in 1471 on the site of a previous church from 1069, which was also dedicated to Santa Maria. The construction of the new church continued until the 18th century. The cathedral therefore combines different styles from late Gothic to Baroque. Worth seeing is the large main altar from the 16th century and the cathedral museum with a reliquary from the 10th century. The former summer residence of the Spanish royal family, the Palacio Real de la Granja de San Ildefonso, is located at an altitude of almost 1,200 meters in the mountains of the Sierra de Guadarrama. High enough to escape the summer heat in Madrid. Kings often made a point of having other residences in addition to the main residence for their court in order to impress the people and the world with their magnificence. Felipe V was one such king. In 1721, he decided to build a palace at the foot of the Sierra de Guadarrama mountains south of Segovia. In keeping with the spirit of the times, the palace was modeled on the Palace of Versailles, the construction of which had begun 60 years earlier. The municipality of Real Sitio de San Ildefonso is located between Segovia and the Navacerrada Pass, which leads over the Sierra de Guadarrama towards Madrid. The former summer residence of the Spanish kings with its large park was built to the southeast of the small town centre. The Palacio Real de la Granja de San Ildefonso, as the royal palace is officially known, has undergone considerable renovations over the years, but also major fires that reduced large parts of the palace to rubble. Viewed from the garden side, the palace building is now a remarkable 153 meters wide. As you would expect, the palace houses numerous art treasures belonging to the royal family, such as valuable tapestries. Many of the building's halls have been restored in the style of Felipe V's time. The attractions of the historic town of Peñafiel are the imposing Castle Hill, the large fairground in the town, and the many wine cellars in the rock. The small town of Peñafiel is located in the Ribera del Duero wine-growing region, which has a special reputation among connoisseurs of good wines. The town's landmark is the Castillo de Peñafiel, a 1,000-year-old castle on a ridge above the town. And below, one of the oldest main squares in Spain, the Plaza del Coso, is hidden behind houses on the outskirts of the town. Peñafiel sees itself as the cradle of viticulture on the banks of the River Duero. The first cooperative was founded here, which was to help the name Ribera del Duero achieve a breakthrough as a brand. The Castillo de Peñafiel is one of the oldest and most beautiful castles in Castile, a region so rich in medieval fortifications. Its characteristic location and layout, 210 meters long but only 35 meters wide, explains why the castle is also known as the Buque de Castilla, the Ship of Castile. Construction began in the first half of the 10th century. The Christian rulers in the north of the country wanted to bring the no-man's land south of the Duero under their control. The view from up here is impressive. The capital of the province of the same name, with just under 80,000 inhabitants, is the center of a fertile area in the south of the region. Celtiberians founded the first settlement here. Over the millennia, Romans, Goths and Moors followed. After the Christian Reconquista, the city was practically refounded in the 11th century. At the beginning of the 13th century, Palencia was home to the first university in Spain for a good decade. In the following centuries, the city developed into one of the economic centers of Castile on one of the most important trade routes from the south to the coast in the north, especially to Santander. The most important site in Palencia is the Gothic Cathedral of San Antolin. Construction of the church began in the 14th century on the site of a predecessor, whose Visigothic and Romanesque elements are preserved today in the crypt. Worth seeing are the Gothic north and south portals, the main altar in Renaissance style and the Flemish tapestries. The Cathedral Museum exhibits the paintings of San Sebastian by El Greco and St. Catherine of Soberan. Worth seeing in the Old Town is the Plaza Mayor, with the town hall and the Gothic Church of San Francisco, which was both the royal seat and meeting place of the Cortes in the 14th century. Another landmark of Palencia is the mighty tower of the Church of San Miguel on the banks of the River Carrion, which strongly resembles a fortified tower. Salamanca is one of the oldest cities in Castile and León. The provincial capital is located 800 meters above sea level on the River Tormes in the vastness of the Castilian plateau. It is an arid region characterized by agriculture and livestock farming. Salamanca is one of the top destinations for a city break in Spain. The Old Town with its cathedrals, university and Plaza Mayor is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. A good 40,000 students out of a total population of 150,000 characterize life in the university city. In the summer months, the city is a popular destination for language students, who can find a wide range of language schools here. Construction of the old cathedral began in the 12th century. The large altar in the apse is worth seeing. The foundation stone for the much larger new cathedral was laid in 1513. In the Capilla del Cristo de las Batallas, you can see a crucifix with which the Spanish national hero El Cid is said to have fought his battles. It is worth climbing up to the towers of the cathedral, Torres Medievales. The reward is not only a good view of the surrounding area, but also some interesting insights into the cathedral from above. Calle Libreros leads in a northeasterly direction to the Patio de las Escuelas, the historic university quarter. The University of Salamanca was founded in 1218 and was one of the most important universities in Europe in the Middle Ages. The Plaza Mayor is considered the most beautiful square in Spain. Salamanca was on the side of the Bourbons in the War of the Spanish Succession. For this reason, Philip V made this main square a gift to the city in 1729. The city of Soria on the River Duero is located in the extremely sparsely populated east of the community of Castile and León at an altitude of over 1,000 meters. The surrounding landscape is barren and rugged, and the winters get really cold. In contrast to the locals, foreign tourists hardly ever come to Soria. The town is located some distance from Spain's main traffic arteries. Those who do stop here can easily be captivated by the atmosphere of this old Castilian town. Like the poets influenced by Spanish Romanticism who lived in Soria for a time at the beginning of the 20th century. The most famous of these was Antonio Machado, whom the city adopted as a godson and whom no one in Soria can fail to recognize. The center of the lively old town is formed by the Plaza Mayor in the east, the traffic-calmed shopping street El Collado and the large Plaza Mariano Granados in the west. The city's main square, the Plaza Mayor, is surrounded by the church of Santa Maria la Mayor, the city palace Torre de Doña Urraca, the Palacio de la Audiencia and the town hall. The lion fountain stands as an eye-catcher in the middle of the square. Soria is known for its impressive number of Romanesque churches. A fine example of this is the Iglesia de Santo Domingo, 12th century, to the north of the old town. The entrance portal, which is well worth seeing, is decorated with scenes from the Old and New Testaments. The Palacio de los Condes de Gomera is located to the southeast, again towards the Old Town. The most beautiful Renaissance building in Soria now serves as a palace of justice. No matter how euphonious the name may sound, many visitors do not come to Zamora in the west of the community of Castile and León, not far from the border with Portugal. As a result, the historic Old Town seems a little lost in the off-season, despite its many sights. It is a good idea to start the tour in the southwest of the Old Town to get your bearings. Here, the old city walls stretch across the banks of the River Duero, and a park separates the ruins of the fortress from the cathedral. The Castillo de Zamora fortress in the south of the Old Town was built from the middle of the 11th century, but was considerably altered in the following centuries, so that hardly anything of the original complex is recognizable. What remains are the walls, which are up to 2 meters thick, the deep moat and the 3 towers. Construction of Zamora Cathedral began in the 12th century. The mighty square tower and the dome covered with scales, which is one of Zamora's landmarks, immediately catch the eye. Next to the high altar of the cathedral are 2 pulpits in Mudejar style. Zamora is the town with the most Romanesque churches in Spain. 22 churches, built between the 11th and 13th centuries, are located in the town. On the northern edge of the Parque del Castillo Park is a Romanesque church from the 12th century, dedicated to Saint Isidoro. Valladolid is overshadowed by the Castilian cities of Burgos, León and Salamanca as a city break destination. The outlying districts are modern and not very attractive. However, the historic old town of Valladolid has its charms. There are also a number of highly interesting museums such as the Sculpture Museum, a unique attraction for visitors interested in culture. The Plaza Mayor is the parlor, meeting place and central square of the old town. The square was laid out in a rectangular shape after a major fire at the end of the 16th century. Valladolid's Plaza Mayor is considered a model for the central squares in other Spanish cities such as Salamanca and Madrid. The Casa Consistorial, town hall, dates back to 1908, and the convent where Christopher Columbus died in 1506 was located on the site of the building opposite, now the Teatro Zorrilla. Valladolid Cathedral is located to the east of the Plaza Mayor and, together with the adjacent squares, forms another center of the old town. The church, designed by Juan de Herrera, is significantly smaller than the famous Spanish Renaissance architect had planned. Construction of the church began at the end of the 16th century, when Valladolid's heyday had already come to an end and its role as the capital of Spain had finally been lost to Madrid. As a result, there were not enough funds to complete the building as planned. Rough, fortified and defiant, this is how the city of Avila presents itself at first glance. The granite city wall covers a length of 2,557 meters. The walls are up to 12 meters high and 3 meters thick. 88 defensive towers divide the gigantic fortifications, 9 gates lead into the medieval Old Town. And all of this was built in a relatively short time between 1090 and 1099. Construction of the mighty Salvador de Avila Cathedral, which is firmly attached to the eastern city wall, began at the same time as the fortifications were erected. Construction work on the cathedral went on for centuries. As a result, a wide variety of stylistic periods are represented, from Romanesque to Tuscan Renaissance influences. The combination of austerity and splendor in the church is impressive. The picture gallery in the Cathedral Museum is well worth a visit, with works by El Greco and others. Avila rose to become an important city in Castile in the 13th century with the granting of special city rights. The Cortes, the Spanish Assembly of Estates, met in the city. The kings resided here and celebrated lavish festivals and weddings. Avila is a city full of churches, monasteries and palaces that are well worth seeing. Most of the aristocratic palaces are located in the Old Town. One example is the Palacio de los Davila on the southern city wall. To the west is the Convento de Santa Teresa. Here, the room where Saint Teresa of Avila was born has been converted into a chapel. Alongside Santiago de Compostela, Teresa is considered one of Spain's national saints. The town on the Way of St. James is 900 meters above sea level, and because a cold wind blows in from the Cantabrian mountains from time to time, the locals joke that summer temperatures only occur from the day of the Apostle to the day of St. Anna, i.e. from 25 to 26 July. But not only pilgrims know how exaggerated this is. Administratively, Burgos is the capital of the province of the same name, and is one of the 9 provinces of the northern Spanish region of Castile-León. Anyone entering the city centre through the colossal Arco de Santa Maria gate will find themselves in the middle of the square in front of the Gothic Cathedral, which has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1984. The thoroughly Gothic cathedral is without doubt the showpiece building of Burgos and was built on the occasion of Ferdinand's marriage to Beatrix of Swabia. Over the centuries, chapels, a cloister and the Archbishop's Palace were added. To the east of the cathedral is a huge monument, Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, also known as El Cid, which the locals call El Murciélago, the bat, because of the wide cape. El Cid reconquered Valencia from the Moors in the 11th century. To this day, the Spanish celebrate him as a national hero, but much belongs to the realm of legend. Several churches, the well-preserved city walls of Burgos, the castle ruins of the former Count of Castile and the Casa del Cordón Palace near the Cid statue on the Plaza de Calvo Sotelo have all been used as backdrops for historical films. The Segovia Aqueduct, located at 1,002 meters above sea level at the foot of the Sierra de Guadarrama, spans the Segovia Valley in central Spain and is one of the most important sites in Spain. Today, the Segovia aqueduct runs through half the city, to which it has provided water, grace and beauty for almost 2,000 years, and rises majestically above the streets and other monuments of Segovia, from which it stands out for its fascinating sobriety and incredible dimensions. However, the aqueduct is just one of many attractive sites in Segovia that make this city in Castile, which is steeped in history in many respects, worth a visit. Be sure to visit the cathedral, which is located at the highest point in Segovia. The Alcázar, a 12th century fortress perched on a rock and offering an impressive view over Segovia, is also worth a visit. Also worth seeing are the narrow streets with their high walls, which have been preserved from the Middle Ages and run like a labyrinth through the old town of Segovia. We recommend the various hidden, quiet squares and tranquil corners of the well-preserved city, as well as the city walls, the beautiful noble houses with their historic coats of arms, the medieval fortress towers, the many monasteries, Romanesque churches, the old Mudejar-style buildings and the lovingly and expertly tended gardens that can be found everywhere. Segovia offers a unique blend of the Roman, Arab, Jewish and Christian cultures of this region, which has been achieved over many centuries. Apart from its architectural attractions, Segovia also boasts a delicious and refined gastronomy, which uses traditional artisan cooking methods in many places and has a very good reputation throughout Spain.